Okay.
Extra live.
All right. I'll give you
Welcome to ILTACON Live from the Gaylord National Harbor at the 2025 International Legal Technology Association's annual conference. I'm Art Kaplan. I'm an analyst that covers the industry, principal of Art Kaplan Advisors, and one of the lucky hosts of this unique series. So I am joined today by Julie Brown, the Director of Practice Technology at Voorhees, Catherine Monti, the Chief Knowledge and Innovation Officer at Fox Rothschild, and Gary Berger, the Director of Information Security at Ogletree Deacons. Wonderful to see you all.
Nice
Good to see you, Ari.
It's great to be here.
I'm super excited, as you can tell. I've been to many ILTAs, but each one of them is just better and better. So, Julie, I want to start with you.
Okay.
How long have you been an ILTA volunteer, and what's the biggest change that you've seen in legal technology?
Okay, that's two questions. Okay. I started volunteering back in 2006 as what we called a city rep at the time, which are now we call member liaisons, and started just hosting local meetings and eventually created a lit support conference for a day in Ohio that we used to do. And then I've just continued to volunteer in different roles, including the ILTACON committee and now the board of directors. So the biggest change I've seen in legal, I think I have to say, is generative AI. I hate to bring it up because a lot of people are saying they've heard so much of it this week, but it really is, going to transform how we work and how our attorneys work. And I actually think the entire business, based on the keynote this morning, is going to completely transform.
I've been through many of these transitions. I was practicing during the internet boom and bust. I was practicing during several different catastrophes in our industry, and I'm also fascinated by what this is going to mean. So, Catherine, one of the questions that comes up a lot is the alignment of knowledge management, the hygiene of your data as people start to deploy some of these tools. What's the advantage of connecting knowledge management, innovation as firms continue to start to integrate artificial intelligence?
It's funny. At our firm, it all sits together, and I think it just makes so much sense because of those synergies across all of those disciplines. And if you don't have your data clean and correct, you can't take advantage of these new technologies in the best way possible. You can't accelerate as fast as you'd like. So I think the fact that you have practitioners that are very close to the attorneys, and we really sit at the nexus of the practice and technology together. When a new technology comes in, we already have the foundational sort of, connections in place with the lawyers, with the other business, departments, and we can bring it together more quickly is what I would say. So knowledge management is very close to the practice. It's very close to, making sure we have the right, templates and, playbooks and all of that together. And when this new technology comes in, you have to make sure all of that is in order to take advantage of that new technology is what I would say.
Well, so Gary, as people are taking advantage of this, I've been producing a lot of research on this topic, polling lots of leaders in law firms and in corporate legal departments, and I always ask about fear. What's the fear? It seems like the fear has gone from fear is going to do something to my job to fear of like, oh, I'm going to get it wrong, but also there's a fear of security. And so what are the security implications of this rapidly changing environment where we really have to make decisions quickly but thoroughly?
Yeah, they're fairly profound, Ari. You were talking about data. The thing that just kind of resonates in my mind about that is data cleanliness, right? It's not really so much a security issue, it's data governance, but the two overlap, very closely. I was talking to someone this morning, and, law firms are predominantly optimistic about their trust model. They assume everybody within the firm should have access to everything. And we retain our data. There isn't a lot of deletion. So the data that's out there that these models are learning from, a lot of it's stale. So it's drawing incorrect inferences and things of that nature. But then there's the other aspect of this too, which is this is a new tech. Well, I was going to say it's a new technology, but it's not, because Hebbian learning and different things like that have been around since the 60s, right? AI has been around in some form or another for a long time. But as now this information starts making it into these large language models and neural infrastructures, it's abstracted, you have to be concerned about the security of that, right? Law firms aren't specialists in software development lifecycle, right? We do things, we get the job done, but there are true software developers out there in the industry that know that lockstep. So I think we need to be thinking along those lines about how we bring those practices into our environment.
It seems like, I feel like I say this every year at ILTACON, but it seems like we're at an inflection. That there's a moment here. Maybe that moment has lasted several years, but we're sort of in something right now. And so what do you expect the most common takeaways for people to be from ILTACON 2025?
Yeah, I think a lot of people are going to walk away going, we're here. We're in it. It's not coming. We're already in it. And I think some people may have come here looking for new tools or products, thinking, oh, this is the future. And I think what we're seeing in a lot of the sessions is it's the now. And it's a little intimidating, I think, and especially in the keynote this morning, the future law firm and the way she described it. At the end, she was like, does anybody have questions? And I think we were all just sitting there going, wow, or at least I was. And we did have a couple of questions, but I think it was very overwhelming to hear the trends she's seeing and her vision of where law firms are going to be in 2035, I think she said. So really just took me, shocked me, I guess, a little bit. So
2035 is a long time horizon. I'm like, sometimes 6 months, I'm like, oh, that's a long time horizon. But just to paraphrase, I guess, Yogi Berra, right? It's getting late early in some respect in our space. And so I feel like when I'm having conversations with law department leaders, people in general counsel, with legal operations leaders, with CIOs, with COOs at law firms, innovation leaders, they want to make the right decision. They want to do it quickly. So what happens now? Like, has the pace of change in legal technology, has it surprised you? Has it changed your strategy at all?
I'll say this. I thought we were sort of on the downside, and we are not on the downside. Things are just going to continue to sort of go up that curve. What I would say is we are in the midst of this, for what Julie is saying. So, but we have some lessons learned already, I feel, with some of what's already out in the marketplace. And I might sound old-fashioned, but you know the adage, people, process, and technology? We're emphasizing the technology a little too much and ignoring the people and the process part. And I would like to hope that we can sort of step back a little and keep pace with that technology, but understand the education part of this, the process, bringing people along. Like, some people are scared. Some people are experimenting with everything, but understanding the nuances of the new tools, trying to teach, attorneys to make sure that they look at their work product before they send it out to someone, that kind of thing. That education is so paramount now because, again, we're sort of still in that upward curve, in my opinion, and that can't be ignored. That's what I would say.
So, yeah, I know. Actually, I'm lucky to know. Actually, I'm lucky to know a lot about all of your firms, but particularly your firm. And it's a dynamic firm, an innovative firm. I know its leaders. Have you seen different teams, though, driving change in law firms in the sense of a collaboration between all the different disciplines, finance, operations, security, other management, and are they working more closely together now than ever before?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, right? I thought about this a lot. There was a book I read some years ago that talked about the different eras of information systems. And at the time I read the book, I think there was like 3 eras, and now there's like 6, and with the most recent being augmented cognition, right? So what I've seen happen, of course, over this evolution of technology is it used to be the mainframe, and you came to the information systems department to do whatever you wanted to do. And they had business analysts that were supposed to understand the business and help them come up with solutions. Roll forward where we are now. And what I guess you could refer to it as is adjacent technology, right? So we have business departments that are enabled to select and implement their own solutions. So what is the role of technology in that environment, right? I mean, we own the infrastructure. We keep the pipes working, and all of the other things. But we also are adopting, I think, a new role of being more active with governance. So, I have seen new teams evolve. Of course, we have our K&I team led up by Dave Mullen, who's just fantastic, and Tim Fox. That team is between 70 and 80 people. They are as large as our IT department. And honestly, in my opinion, they are the next generation IT department. So the role of the IT operations team is kind of changing. It's a little bit more behind the scenes, but we are actively working with these teams to enable them and help them leverage the technologies that they need and do it successfully and securely, obviously. Right.
Are each of you seeing that as well? That there's sort of this multidisciplinary
Yes.
group of leaders who are really listening to each other and
Absolutely. Yeah.
Stumbling through the the craziness together. Yeah, absolutely. We rely very, very much on our security teams. They're part and parcel of the process now, for sure.
So, Julie, I want to ask you this. So, there's a great movie. It's called Draft Day with Kevin Costner, and he's trying to make draft picks. And I'm a big sports fan, and I like sports movies. And in the movie, he talks about this moment where Joe Montana's in the Super Bowl, and he says, the great ones have a way of slowing things down. And so, I feel like there's some message here at ILTA, like, learn and see and be overwhelmed in the moment, but try to slow it down to figure out what really works for you. So what takeaways do you feel like you're hoping that people, not just takeaways, but what questions are you hearing? Do you expect them to be able to answer when they get back?
Yeah, I think with respect to slowing down, I think one thing to always keep in mind is when you're looking at technology, what problem are you trying to solve? And if you can't just go by the shiny new object and start creating stuff that's not actually solving a problem. You also have to have some metrics in place to understand why you're solving that problem and what the impact is to the law firms. So I think for a lot of people, they're hearing from other firms that are actually rolling out systems and there was a session on the AI journey and different law firms where they're talking about their journey so far. And I think you could learn a lot from that as far as, the stop points and the points where you're doing that check-in to say, are we really doing what we need to be doing? So, yeah, I think there's been a lot of sessions on Gen AI. And I think just sharing the experiences with everybody is really helpful.
I've actually seen more than ever technology leaders, security leaders coming to this conference with their managing partner or other leaders of their firm, some even bringing their clients, because I've really been hearing a lot more from clients saying, I wish we could learn more from our firm. I wish our firms would be more proactive about showing us what they're doing. So, Kevin, over the years, you've been a volunteer for ILTA for some time. Are there moments that stand out either at ILTACON or in other ways that really resonate and bring some memories back for you?
Well, there's so many memories. There's no way I can pick one. It's a series of memories, a series of moments. And I would say it changes. I've been a board member. I've been a strategic relationship liaison. I've been a knowledge management, whatever that was called 20 years ago. But to me, what's most important are the connections. I'm just going to go back to people. It's the connection. So like yesterday, we were in a room talking about knowledge management. We broke up at different tables. I was at the table of Future of KM. And the buzz and the energy of that, new people that I met, what we took away, to me, that's what ILTA's about. So yes, it's wonderful to hear about all the new tools, but it's to say, hey, you used that new tool. What happened? What were your lessons learned? All of those kinds of connections to me are what ILTA's all about. So again, I've been volunteering for over 20 years, and there's so many moments like that. But to me, it still comes back to the people, and with these wonderful people right here, serving on the board with them. No, it's true. Getting through tough decisions and that kind of thing, establishing those relationships. I never would have met either one of them in my normal day-to-day. And those relationships have enriched me. And that to me is what ILTA's all about.
Excuse me.
Well, so,
Ditto.
all right, so Gary, you're up here.
Ditto.
I love the vibe that we're having right now. But you mentioned this time horizon of 2035, but really these decisions are we're looking at much shorter time horizons now.
Absolutely.
And I wonder, what do you think the themes that we will be discussing a year from now at ILTA 2026 in Nashville will be?
Yeah, it's a good question. A lot of the same, right? AI is going to be on the forefront for quite a while. I mean, in many ways, it's kind of in its inception, even though what I said earlier is still true, but the application of it now is very different. And of course, we have agentic AI, and we're going to have agents and things like that. So that's going to be in the forefront more and more. And as we adopt it more and more, we're going to be more and more concerned about the governance issues and the security issues. So I think those are going to evolve. But then there's also the human element of this as well, right? What does it mean for the people who need to use this technology? And how do we train them so that they can get the most out of it, right? So I think that's going to be an emerging theme as we go along as well.
Speaking of training, what skills, Catherine, what skills do you feel like new professionals in this industry will need to thrive and become board members in some years? You know, next year by ILTA 2035. But just thinking, like, what are those skills that you feel like will be enduring, and what will maybe emerge?
I'm going to say they're the same skills, but maybe we're amplify up a few of them up
Thank you.
a little bit. But it's listening. It's listening to many people. It's understanding different perspectives. It's knowing what the industry is about. Knowing what threats are happening. So it's being informed. And I would say it's this may sound funny, more of a generalist as well as someone who's smart with the technology. But it's not just the technology is what I'm trying to say. It's about understanding what is the impact on that attorney, on the firm, on the business. If you don't have that piece, it's hard to you're a little bit in a vacuum. So to me, it's expanding the tech skills with the industry knowledge, the firm business knowledge, and putting all that together tonight.
When my kids were little, they'd get a toy or something. In fact, when they started wanting to cook, I'd always have to get up and make breakfast. My wife would be at the gym. And then at some point, they were probably too little for this. I'd be like, you guys should make breakfast. And my son's like, well, what happens if we burn ourselves? And I'm like, you only do that once. Like, you'll figure it out. And every time they'd have a toy, I'd say, you guys try. And if it doesn't work and breaks something, we'll figure it out. So Julie, what do we do about that mindset in the law firm where it's so much more about taking certain calculated, trying things and changing the culture a little bit to experiment in I practiced for nearly 9 years. It's a profession of certainty in many respects. And a lot of this work, it requires a little bit of an adventurous mindset.
It really does. And I was going to say everything Catherine said was great. And I was like, also, taking those calculated risks, not being afraid to fail, because that's so much of what we're doing right now. I usually try to do it on something that's not client facing, and run as much of my testing as I can without negatively impacting somebody, but really trying to learn the tools and take kind of incremental steps before you put it out there to reduce as much risk as you can. But I do think we are in a period where people definitely need to be able to fail and then get back at it. Yeah.
So, Gary, where do people get started? How if I'm watching this and I someday want to be a board member, I want to get into leadership, I want to get more involved in this wonderful organization, where do you recommend people get started?
Well, there are so many opportunities in ILTA to volunteer, right? And we have a really good structure, and we're really deliberately working on making sure there's some progression. So you can be on a content committee and helping select things, and then you can become a committee co-chair, and then you can migrate up through the council. And all of that is just making you aware of, the culture and the way ILTA works. And that's certainly really helpful. I'm a little bit different animal. I kind of came in a little bit differently. I had spoken. I also was on the legal sex steering committee. But predominantly, it was just the experience that I had within my firm that I think I brought to the board, right? And my orientation towards security. So I think focusing on that is a good way to come in as well. It's always good on a team to have somebody who doesn't really have the group think, so to say, and have the same perspective as everybody else. I think I kind of jokingly called myself the director with questions, right? So we have a new role called director with portfolio, but I'm the director
And
with questions.
you asked so many great questions that wouldn't have come to light if we didn't have
Thank
you,
you.
right? So it was important.
So I think, understanding the organization, its mission, its values, seeing where you align with that personally and how you want to support it, and then set out to find a track. Talk to people like us, talk to other volunteers, and start your journey.
And I would add something to that because the Talent Council really put forth a lot of effort this year to cast a wide net in terms of applications. And purposely, because we wanted the diversity of experience, we wanted the different perspectives. So leadership can come in many forms, and you don't have to do the traditional, I'll call it ladder approach. Sometimes it's like that, and sometimes it's like that. So as Gary said, we want a board that really has fresh perspectives, comes in with different, again, experiences, and comes together to make the best decisions for the organization. So.
Well, you say leadership comes in many forms, but this is the purest, most generous form, and I'm grateful to be hosting this little segment of ILTACON Live, the inaugural ILTACON Live at ILTACON 2025. And Catherine, Julie, Gary, it's really been a privilege. Thank you. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Ari.
Thank
It's a
you for the
pleasure.
opportunity.
Around at all? I'm kind of a normal look around the guy. It seems weird to staring at you the whole time.
Mike's running.
Cool.
Welcome, Rick. It's for the inaugural LinkedIn Live sessions. So I'm here with Rick Hellers, the CEO of ScanLogic. Nice to see you, Rick.
Hey, good to see you as well.
Wow, that's great. So we had a couple of conversations earlier on thinking about what we might want to chat about. And I think one of the things that really sort of brings me to this place year on year is the community and what the vibe is about ILTACON. Why don't you talk to me about your journey with ILTACON and your history and where we are, and then we can see where we get to.
Yeah, it's been a tremendous part of my life. I'm 45 years in legal tech.
Oh, wow.
This is my 36th ILTACON. I was here at the beginning. And, you know, as I'm getting older, I'm having a lot of reflections. And I find that I think back to the early days, and we were pioneers.
Yeah.
We wouldn't have survived. We were a group of law firms that were running a practice management system. We called it a time billing and accounting system back then. And there were no manuals. There were no Google. Nobody had ever done it before. And we'd call each other and say, you know, I'm stuck and I can't go home until I get this figured out. Can you help? And that evolved into what today is ILTACON.
Oh, wow.
And it's amazing to see that community, that spirit, that willingness to give back is baked into everything we still do.
Yeah, I mean, I see it. So coming from the UK, my first ILTACON was 2012, you know, and I was amazed by the scale, but I was amazed by the scale of generosity and literally like new faces coming into the market. What we were doing at HiQ at the time was really quite big in the UK and then growing in the US. And it was like, we were just welcomed with everyone and anything. So it was a really good sort of place to be. 36 years though. There's lots of change happening right now. I mean, obviously, like the change from then to today is dramatic. I mean, there's more power in your iPhone than there was in a computer room that was the size of whatever this space.
Yeah, our first systems the technology in the 80s was a fax machine.
Yep.
A telephone system, a Wang computer. Running a word processing department and a time billing and accounting system.
Yeah.
And that was it. And in the 90s, the biggest challenge was how do we get lawyers to embrace technology? I remember surveys back then were done on how many lawyers do you have in your firm that have a PC on their desktop?
Yeah, wow.
And then the kind of secret survey was, how many of them actually turn it on?
That's the thing. But you think about sort of adoption of legal tech today. I mean, I have conversations with my team, and it's been a sort of a running thread. Getting lawyers to adopt tech was always a challenge, always quite trying to work out the ROI for law firms, what they were doing and how they were doing it. But you look at sort of the pace of change today, I feel like, and I don't know about you, but the amount of change that's happened in the last 3 years eclipses the amount of change that's happened in the last 10.
Well, sure. My generation, we didn't grow up with computers, right? We kind of stumbled into them in our 20s and pioneered and innovated and all those things. This generation's grown up with Google, has grown up with computers, expects it. I have young kids and they grab my phone and can do things that I can't do. And so it's only natural that technology is finally going faster in law firms.
Yeah.
It's only natural.
I think it's like it's beyond the sort of the tech that you were just talking about earlier is the operational tech, and it's the tech that's in the hands of the lawyers, making them more efficient, more productive, thinking about all of those different integrations. As a vendor, how do you sort of keep up with the pace of change, the news, the updates, AI, this, that? I mean, I know as a vendor myself, I struggle to keep up with everything. How do you as a business, what do you think about these things? And how do you put the perspective of the customer first beyond experiencing this kind of community and sharing and everything else?
Great question. I mean, the first and foremost is talk to the clients, talk to the users, understand their pain points, surround yourself by people who are tinkers, or willing to try things and not worry about whether it was right or wrong, but just try it, break it, learn from it, right? Conferences like this, I mean, this is community. I feel, I mean, like, there are 4,400 people here this year. I have done my level best to try to connect and talk and shake every single one of their hand.
Yeah.
Because I learned something from every single conversation. The education here has always been top notch, right? Above and beyond what any organization has ever been able to put together, and it's all volunteers.
Yeah,
It's freaking amazing.
But it comes back to that community. It's people helping people, and it's like the boundaries and the sort of for me, the boundaries between vendor, firm, sort of organization, volunteer, we're just humans. We're just connected, and it's that natural sort of sharing, and it's the environment that ILTA fosters, which is really sort of what it brings me back. I'm it's really weird. It's one of those things. You make friends of your clients, you make friends of your sort of vendors and competitors, and it's like you sit there and you go, I come here and I spend a lot of time sort of like you, connecting with as many people as possible. But I've got people that I met in 2012 that I look forward to seeing once a year at ILTACON.
Indeed.
And it's part of the fabric of what we do and how we do it.
Yeah.
One last question, Rick. So what does ILTACON look like going forward? Are we because there's so many more events than there used to be. I think this is still the premier sort of event for bringing everyone together. There's so many different types of vendors, so many different types of communities, from KM to like lawyers and everyone else sort of in between. How do we sort of beyond the community? What are we doing next? What do we need to do? What do we need to be thinking about?
Continue to transform.
Yeah.
Right. And if you think about that word transformation, that's what we've been doing lately. We've been digitally transforming. I kind of laugh at that because I was in the beginning, we really digitally transformed when we went from pure analog to digital. But ILTACON has been part of every transformation in technology that law firms have had, and they've always been at the leading edge of it. So I think that's just it, is continuing to transform as the technology transforms. Continue to have that community spirit. Continue to help others, right? Continue to grow the next generation.
Yeah, definitely. Rick, thank you very much for taking the time. It's a real pleasure. And thank you very much.
Thanks.
Cheers.
Cheers to everyone.
Yeah. Welcome, Joe and Luke, to the inaugural LinkedIn Live sessions here at ILTACON 2025. So why don't you start with a little bit of an intro? I mean, I know both of you very well. You're two of my favorite humans. So why don't we start with you, Joe?
It'll be so much more fun to put you on the spot and have you do our intros. Totally unscripted. No, I'm just kidding. I'm Joe Green. I'm Chief Innovation Officer at Gunderson Detmer. I was a practicing lawyer for a bunch of years. Worked at Thomson Reuters for a bit, which I know all of us have in common. And then came back to Gunderson to build out an innovation function in 2020.
Awesome.
Luke Koopmeyer, Innovation Technology Manager at Gunderson. Currently work for him. Used to work for you at Thomson Reuters and IQ. And that's why I think they brought me to Gunderson, was to help build IQ out for them.
And many other things.
Yeah, but it started with IQ and kind of moved into some other stuff.
Excellent. Cool. So I thought when we started to think about what we would talk about today, I want to cover a couple of topics: pace of change, market forces, client demands. But, you know, at the moment, it is ridiculous. How do you guys keep up with the pace of change in terms of what's expected of you as an innovation team, how you operate, what goes through your strategic roadmap when everything is changing month by month, week by week, hour by hour?
It is a challenge. I will admit, it is a challenge. The pace is kind of mind blowing right now.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I got into this. I went to Gunderson in the first place. I mean, Gunderson's a firm that exclusively focuses on the innovation economy.
Okay.
We work with venture-backed startups and venture capital firms.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's our core and really only business. And so I like talking to new companies that are doing new, exciting things.
Yeah.
And so that piece of it, the kind of horizon scanning and hearing what people are doing and keeping tabs on products as they develop that are young and kind of growing and pivoting. I love that stuff. So it doesn't feel like a burden. But the strategic planning around that is becoming increasingly challenging.
Yeah.
We have a whole bunch of products in our tech stack that we bought with a kind of very specific value proposition in mind. Here's the problem that this solves for us. We were solving it well. We were kind of growing with them. Venture capital money started flooding into the space. And now everybody is trying to build everything or building into each other quite a lot. Which from a user perspective becomes very confusing.
Yeah.
From a cost perspective, it becomes hard to justify. And so I think that's one of the big challenges that a lot of firms are facing right now as they kind of make these decisions. It's very hard to make any kind of long-term plan around this because who knows what next year looks like.
Yeah. I mean, I think I spend a lot of time talking to sort of friends in the industry and sort of particularly people in innovation functions who are close to their lawyers, as opposed to sort of the old school IT where you'd be given a new desktop with a new application to do a thing. You'd do 17 hours of training and you'd be, hey, I'm using a new PC. That context switching between those tools that are sort of blurring the lines between each other, it's hard enough for you guys. How are you sort of working with your lawyers and the people that you're sort of servicing to help them cope with the pace of change? You mentioned that you're interested in it, so that's good.
Yeah.
But actually, how does that translate to what you do for your lawyers?
Well, I mean, take Luke, right? Like you've got, I don't know how many tools that you can use to build.
So many. I get to play with so many things, and it's so fun.
And when you're talking to our lawyers and they have an issue, one of the big things that we have to do is come back and just kind of like take a look at all the things that we have in the toolbox and say like, how are we gonna, what's best place to solve this problem? So we kind of try to abstract that away, I think, from the lawyers, and then we sort of deal with that on our side. But I mean, you spend a lot of time talking to our lawyers about the stuff that they're facing.
And that's one of my favorite parts of the job. Like, luckily for me, I don't have to worry about the strategic planning as much, which I think is the hard part. I get to do the fun part because I get to play with all the toys and get to listen to stories. And my favorite thing to do is and you saw this at HiQ, he sees this now, I like to be creative and solve problems in ways that really haven't been solved before. And so that's the fun part to me. And now we have this tech stack that Joe just is like, go play. And we get to just build things. And, cliche word, but we get to innovate, with fun technologies.
I mean, I think that was the thing. I mean, so when we were building out the team back in the HiQ days of what we would call our client success team, one of the sort of foundational aspects, apart from needing to be good humans, which you are, it was that curiosity, that drive to sort of deliver for a customer, whether it be the lawyers or the clients or whatever that might sort of focus on. So how do you bring that into Gunderson? as opposed to sort of thinking about how do you grow that function? How do you spread that kind of culture of experimentation? Because traditionally lawyers are a little bit risk averse in terms of where they are, but actually that's changing now because they have to change. Yeah. But how do you sort of start spreading that sort of, we want to try stuff. I mean, obviously you said that you're sort of a bit of a forward thinking sort of tech focused organization. Yeah. So this may be more natural for you guys, but what are the tips that you can do for other teams building out innovation functions, looking for good people, apart from poaching Luke, obviously?
He's ours. Leave him alone. Yeah, I mean, in terms of building out the innovation team and getting kind of the right, type of people, we look for people like Luke. We look for people who are creative, curious, willing to just dive into something and learn. Yeah. We're not looking for people who have like all the certifications and all the already know kind of the way to do things, because again, this stuff changes so fast. Yeah. New things are coming online all the time. So we really kind of emphasize curiosity and kind of openness. Someone who's willing to kind of like, here's what we have in mind for your job, but like, how would you write this job spec? What would you like to be doing? How can we enable that so that you wake up every day and are kind of happy, to come do your job? On the attorney front, we are blessed by the fact that all of the attorneys who work at Gunderson self-selected to work with tech companies and startups, and so have a little bit of a different mindset than attorneys at many, but they're still attorneys, and they're busy, and change is hard. And so, I mean, I think the things that we found to be successful, I mean, one, trying to make things as intuitive as possible, but two, just staying in front of people. It's one of the things we struggle with a bit, because a lot of us are builders. We spend a lot of time building. Yeah. And it's a full-time job to be able to like stay in front of people and be hands-on and kind of like look at how they're working. And we haven't quite cracked that nut yet, but we're trying to do a better job of it.
Cool. So we've lasted, I don't know how long we've been going for, but we haven't mentioned the word AI.
That's impressive.
Agents.
We deserve an award.
Exactly.
11 minutes.
Exactly. There we go.
11 minutes.
But we have inferred the pace of change around what's going on, the market, the money that's coming into legal tech at the moment. How do you see things playing out in terms of the adoption and the maturity of the technologies that you guys are working with? Some of them are early stage, some of them are bigger. I mean, even the big ones are early stage. But what do you look for? How do you sort of take those formative sort of products and then turn them into something that means something to you and your lawyers?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's the $64 million question. I feel like now.
That's a higher number. It's not the $64 million question.
That's a lot of inflation.
$64 billion.
A lot of inflation has happened since. So I was on a panel yesterday with our friends from Deep Judge, Yana Kilcher is their CTO, and we were talking about, he has sort of a nice way of kind of breaking down the evolution of AI from kind of simple prompting to prompt engineering to kind of like building up to this kind of agentic era that we're entering. And the comment I made is I feel like we're sort of actually in the age of tools. Yeah. A lot of the things that where I think the most exciting things are kind of happening in the space now is taking these amazing underlying capabilities, putting them into no code, low code interfaces that let subject matter experts kind of get more hands-on on solving like specific problems more repeatably. And then I think the age of agents is giving that to an agent that can use tools and having all of these tools kind of built out. And I think like we're sort of bringing users along on that journey as well, where when we launched a kind of chat RAG application in 2023 to our entire firm, and a lot of people were kind of paralyzed by that chat box. They were like, I don't know what to do with this thing. What do you put in there? Where's the instruction manual? Other people tried one thing that was a terrible thing to ask an LLM to do, and we're like, well, this is horrible, it's broken, I'm never going to use this again. But now, as we kind of show, like, hey, no, here are all the things that it can do when you put a little bit of, kind of thought and engineering behind it. You're bringing people along to kind of understand like how best to use this technology, and it's only going to get better. It's only going to get easier. And right now, I think it's still going after a lot of the low-hanging fruit, a lot of the stuff that's just nobody wakes up in the morning wanting to do the drudgery that is part of much of our daily work lives. And so, the more of that we're kind of, cutting out even bit by bit, even if it's each individual thing isn't like the most mind-blowing thing in the world, like cumulatively, that really adds up.
Yeah, but it's so much more effective though. Just that one thing, it's so much more effective than having a lawyer just go to ChatGPT and try to put in a prompt and try to do the same thing, because what I've learned, at least, and I don't want to speak for other people, but in this AI journey is like how important prompting actually is.
Yeah.
You know, like we're working on a project that we are just continually iterating on our system prompts, and being able to do that for the lawyer and have the AI actually do what we intend it to do and what they want it to do.
Yeah.
I think it's just so much more effective. So just breaking it out into those little pieces, it just helps it. And it also helps adoption because it works.
Yeah, I mean, we see on our side sort of that drive for orchestration. So it isn't just the AI tool; it's the other systems that it needs to interact with, the integrations, the flow of data. You know, that's the thing that's really driving that modality of sort of an attorney going to a chat interface and getting something right. You know, to your point, the prompts are the sort of the secret sauce, if that makes sense, and how you chain them together. And it's more engineering. And so ultimately what we're seeing is attorneys that might not necessarily need to see that, but they want the output. And the output's the important bit. And it's been crafted and brought together by a team of smart people with different skills to the other smart people that are going to use it. But layering it into that sort of phased workflow kind of approach where there's a blend of agentic and deterministic processes that sort of determine how you get from A to B and what does that look like. So, you know, you guys are at the forefront of that. And I think there's only sort of more to be, I mean, it's not going to stop. It's going to be constant. Question for you guys. How much do you see potential for those kind of tools to not be lawyer facing? It's the operational side of the business. Is that something that you're focused on, or is it just sort of the innovation within the lawyer facing tool set?
No, we take a very holistic approach to innovation. We work really closely with a lot of our other business functions, finance, marketing, talent. I mean, honestly, what we do is we help solve legal problems. We help, deliver legal services. Everything that we do behind the scenes, whether it's the lawyers, whether it's the business professionals, it all feeds into it, right? And into the business being strong and providing a good end product. And there's tons of opportunities on the business side. Tons of opportunities.
Oftentimes, I think it's sort of that side is sort of not forgotten about, but it's sort of, it comes second or third or fifth type thing. And I think I see tremendous, I mean, 50% of the conversations I've had this week about orchestrating AI and bringing, it's all been about business operations. And it's how do we not just make something 20% more effective and efficient? How do we then layer that and make it smarter to make it 40, 50%? And so, it's an interesting journey that we're on. Chaps, always an absolute pleasure to chat. Two of my favorite humans. Actually, maybe not. But thank you very much for taking. There it is. But I didn't call you a name or anything. But guys, thank you very much. Greatly appreciated. Cheers, Joe. Cheers,
Really
Luke.
fun. Thanks
Take it easy. Thank you. Bye. That's going to be hard for me.
What are we going to talk about then?
Yeah, what are we gonna do?
Welcome, Jason and Cara, to the inaugural LinkedIn Live sessions here at ILTACON in Washington 2025. Thank you for taking the time.
Yeah.
Thank you for taking the time. So the idea of this session is to really talk about ILTA, what it means, what's important, and how you guys see ILTACON evolving in the future and the past and where we are and what we're doing. So why don't you talk to me, Cara, initially about your role with ILTA and where you are, what you're doing?
Great. Well, I've been involved with ILTA, and I do believe this is my 25th conference,
Wow.
believe it or not. I started when I was 10. I'll say. ILTA has really, I'm grateful for the experience. It's a privilege. It's an honor to volunteer and serve on the ILTA Board of Directors. I have grown up in ILTA, and I'm grateful. Honestly, part of my career is really because of ILTA and the networking and the connections I've made, not only members, but through business partners as well. It's a sense of community I'm not sure that you have in any other organization. It's not only just connections, they become family.
And you, Jason, how long have you been involved?
Not 25 years. I think my first ILTACon was 2013. So a number of years. I volunteered, I think, shortly after that. I got pulled in by the old ILTA judo move. I was complaining about something late at night to a longtime volunteer, and he basically told me, "Well, then you should volunteer and fix it." And he was right. And I've pulled the same move on other people. So it's a tried and true ILTA tradition. But Kara brings up a good point about community. We've talked about that a little bit this week already, but I wanted to bring it up because it was actually after a conversation that you and I had in London, where it sort of struck me that I mean, I always knew ILTA had a great community, but what really struck me about it was that's actually really what makes us different than there's all these other conferences coming up and all these other kind of events that are starting around legal tech, legal innovation. But the thing that really makes ILTA different is the community. And so we're really trying to focus in on that and figure out how can we support that? How can we make it better? How can we contribute time and attention and resources to that?
I think in one of the other conversations I had earlier today, we were talking about the sense of community. But you, as you said, Cara, you make friends. It's a very human sort of centered organization in terms of, I sort of look forward to coming to ILTA, not because I get to see Jason.
I see him too.
Yeah, but I see people once a year at ILTACON. But they've I think my first ILTACON was 2012, and it's like they've become friends. They've become part of my family. They know my kids' names, but I only see them once a year.
Every conversation becomes a connection.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good line, actually. I like that. You should trademark it.
Should type that up.
Yeah. So you've recently gone from volunteer to Uber volunteer.
Sure.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So what was the judo move that got you to president?
Really, so it's a lot of I think it's like any career move, any situation. It's a bit of work and a bit of luck. I was just going over this with somebody else. I actually wasn't elected this last term. We had somebody step down, and I got asked to fill in their role. And so I wasn't elected this last term, and then this very last election got elected to president, which is kind of crazy. I'm still absorbing it all, but
the power. It's the power.
Hasn't gone to my head yet. But yeah,
I think it's going to be fun. We have a really great group of folks rolling onto the board. They're already deep involved and wrapping their heads around what we're going to be doing, and I think we're set to do some really interesting things. I've talked about this a little bit, but the organization is in a really great spot right now. There's it's in a really strong spot financially. This is, you know, our big, in a lot of ways, biggest ILTA conference we've ever had.
Yeah.
So I think that's all well and good, but our biggest challenge this sort of next term is really taking that position of strength, not resting on our laurels, and figuring out how to push forward from that position.
Yeah, I think I was talking with Joe and Luke from Gunderson on this show earlier. The pace of change, driven by tech, driven by people, competition, it's affecting this industry across the board, and it must be affecting ILTA too. And sort of, again, so thinking about not resting on your laurels and not sitting there going, okay, we're in a position of strength, but having that sort of sense of like, where do we go next? What are we doing? How are we thinking about that? How are we sort of going to remain where we are as an organization? But I think, without wanting to answer my own question, it does come back to what you said earlier. It is the community. It's the humans that bring that together. And that's a big differentiator. It isn't just another place to go. It's like you're bringing everything together. How many volunteers are there for ILTA? Because
Hundreds.
Oh, okay, cool. I didn't know it was that kind of scale.
Yeah. It's a pretty. I don't know the exact number, but it's a huge group. We just did a reception for all the volunteers yesterday evening, and and we only had a fraction of them there, obviously, and not all of them are able to make it to conference. But Joy talks about this all the time. The size and scale and commitment of our volunteers is pretty much unmatched in the definitely in the association community. And the only other place you see this level of volunteering is in sort of charity, like charity work, nonprofits that way. So it's really impressive, and it's really unique, and it's something that that I really value. And I think we need to continue to invest in our volunteers to ensure that we're supporting them the best we can, and helping them to succeed in whatever their roles are.
I think it's that, Tara, why don't you sort of, in your time as a volunteer and like being part of ILTACON, as a person that's here for the conference, but also as a volunteer, what do you value out of that, beyond the friendships, beyond the connections? Do you take stuff back to your day job and go, actually, there's a thing here, there's a bit there?
Absolutely. I look at all the conference sessions that are happening here, all the business partner interaction. Those conversations lead to a learning opportunity, even just walking around the showroom hall, the exhibit hall today. I'm amazed at the technology that's here, how many new business partners are here. It's certainly evolved over the years. That's a huge benefit. Taking that information that you're learning and absorbing here back to your firm is a huge benefit to your firm. But also, I think serving as a volunteer, you get to know what other firms are doing. If you have a problem with a technology or a issue at your firm, you have your colleagues to ask, hey, what are you doing? What are you using for, to resolve this issue? Or have you had a technology issue with a certain business partner, which we never do, right? But having those resources right at hand is very powerful.
And it's not just that, it's like I get the question all the time, what is this firm doing? What is that firm doing?
Right.
And because I have this network, I can be like, just give me a couple days and I'll get the answer for you. So it's super powerful being able to have colleagues and this kind of a network to rely on for those type of questions that you really can't answer any other way.
Yeah.
ILTA's had the tag pure powered for years, and it's so true. And I don't think throughout the history it's ever gone away. And hopefully it won't in the future. Mr. President.
Don't break it, Jason. Don't break it.
Yeah. It's a challenge over the next 2 years. Don't break it.
Guys, thank you very much for taking the time. It's always a pleasure to catch up. Always a pleasure to be here. This is slightly daunting, but it's been fun. And
It's
I've
been
laughed,
fun.
and it's been good. Thank you very much,
Thank
Cara.
you.
bud.
Nice
Appreciate
to see you.
Appreciate
Take
it.
it easy. Thank you.
Hello, I am Melissa Ballesteros, and I sit in the volunteer development committee. I got my ribbon, and I'm the content team, and I'm also a member liaison. So I do a lot of things around ILTA. I love ILTA, and I'm here with James. How about you introduce yourself?
Hi, Melissa. Yeah, I have far fewer ribbons than you do. But I'm also an ILTA volunteer. I'm an ILTA buddy. I'm on the programming committee, and I chair the UK litigation special interest group.
Wow. So you may have less ribbons, but very important ones. I have a lot of fun too.
Thank you.
Well, it's great to be here with you. Thank you so much. I'm excited to learn more about you, but I'm also excited to share with others out there what we're doing here, right?
Yeah.
And what this is all about. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what all those ribbons mean and why you're here today?
Okay, sure. And well, as I said to you before, I'm hoping to ask some questions to you as well. So I know I'm on the hot seat, but I'm hoping that you'll also talk.
I'll play.
So my name's James McGregor. I founded a firm called Ethical E-Discovery, and I founded it about 2.5 years ago. I've been in the e-discovery world for some time. I began my career in the US originally, probably about 15 years or so ago in this space. And from about the second year that I started working in the e-discovery industry, I started coming to ILTACON. There were two major conferences that I attended. One was Legal Tech, as it was called at the time in New York, and the other was ILTACON, which, as you know, rotates around these various different places. And I always loved ILTACON from the first time that I started coming because the people were so friendly and it just felt like a very warm and yeah, a relaxed setting. I mean, for me, whilst there are lots of great sessions to attend, I think the stuff that I enjoy most is more the peer-to-peer networking and the discussions, and it's all the stuff that happens outside of the sessions themselves. And so as I started my own business, when I used to come before, I was working for bigger firms and they would fund you in order to come to these events. But when you go out on your own, it's a little more challenging in order to pay for all of the passes and everything, because you know there's so much that goes on and it costs a great deal of money in order to make this show happen. So understandably, it's expensive for people to attend. And so I started volunteering, and I've volunteered in many aspects before ILTA in different capacities. But at ILTACON, I started volunteering. Actually, it was so I started my business, but I was a year on my own before I started my business. So for about 3 years now, and that involves a variety of different things. This year, I've mainly been scanning badges for people as they've been coming into sessions. And yeah, for me, what I like about volunteering is you get to meet really nice people. You get your pass for free, which is really nice. And it's just a great way to get experience, because some of the sessions that I'm scanning are not ones that otherwise I would attend. But after you've done that, you get to see some content that perhaps you otherwise wouldn't get to see. But I want to hear more about your ribbons and your involvement with ILTA.
Absolutely. Well, you mentioned a couple of things that are important to bring up. One is that our firms do allow us to be here for some of us like me. And I'm very grateful for Holland & Knight, which is who I work for. And they do give us this opportunity because not only is it a great meeting place, as you've already mentioned, but the content, right? It is content that's created by a volunteer. So I've done some of that myself. And my next question, so you prepare, is going to be on this, because I feel that the conference is just 5 days, unfortunately. So what do we do with the rest of the year? And I think that ILTA is an organization that's based on its volunteers for a really good reason. And we all work really hard on a yearly basis to produce the content that you see on the website, to connect with others and work on projects that are meaningful for the overall community. So to give you an example, last year, I don't know if you've seen these little buttons that are running around with languages.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was my initiative through the Volunteering Development Committee. And the idea is that if you have a firm in another country, you know, an office in another country, or if you speak another language, you will pick that language so that we can connect. Not only speak on the same language, but also be able to get people like you to understand and give ideas as to how they can collaborate and they can continue the work throughout the year.
Are there any ILTA sessions that are delivered in a different language?
There are. If you go to the website, you can find them in Spanish. There's some content as well. And so I speak Portuguese and Spanish, and we're trying to create some of that content too.
Okay.
Barbara Gondim de Rocha, which I think you've met, she does a lot of volunteering from another country, right, while living there, and so do you. So I guess my question to you is, how do you continue and how do you really get more out of being a volunteer throughout the year? Because I think that's where the key really turns, right?
Yeah, sure. So I've always done volunteering in some capacity, you know, even prior to ILTA for various different organizations. There are a couple of local charities that I volunteer for. Like during the pandemic, I used to deliver food to people who were vulnerable. Because, well, there was a good way to still connect with people when we were all locked in our homes. And then when I moved to a new place, Farnham, which is where I live now in England, I joined a local charity and I volunteered for them because it's a really nice way to meet new people. And then in my professional realm, I've always done lots of voluntary work as well. So I used to be a part of ACEDS, the Association of Certified E-Discovery Specialists. And I founded the first international chapter, the UK chapter, probably 10 years or so ago. And then when I started with ILTA in the litigation special interest group, I think that was about 3.5 years ago now. It was after I'd moved away from ACEDS and I wanted to continue volunteering, but do it differently. For me, I think the benefit that I get from ILTA and that I think other people derive from it. So, and I'm talking specifically about the litigation special interest group that I run. We meet about once a quarter, roughly. And in that room are the heads of e-discovery at all the major law firms in the UK. And we talk about things under Chatham House rules. So it's protected as an open forum to discuss whether it's a technology, whether it's a workflow, things that you want to get the opinion of other people in the same situation, but you want it to be free from any kind of sales pitch. So there's no one in there who stands to benefit from any way by pushing a particular agenda or a particular idea. It is just a mutual exchange of ideas. And I think that's something that's a very core tenet of the ILTA ethos. And so it's one of the things that I really like about it. And I guess from organizing these sessions, so I organize them, but because my business, Ethical E-Discovery, is a service provider, I don't actually stay in the sessions. I put them together, but then I speak to the people afterwards. And through doing it, what I find really useful is I learn how other people are doing things at different firms, which I then get to practice when I'm working with my clients. And again, going back to what I get the most out of at ILTACON, it's not so much the sessions themselves, though I appreciate they're very valuable for lots of people. It's more talking to other people that have got similar problems and understanding how they're solving those problems. And that then means that, and this is also the benefit of the relationships that you build at an event like this, that then means that when you get that problem, you can call that person up and say, hey, I don't want to divulge anything about the specifics of this. It's important that we all protect confidentiality, but I know you ran into a similar technical issue previously. How did you solve it, and benefit from that expertise? And that's something that, as a volunteer, it's invaluable because you basically have colleagues at lots of different organizations and you get to benefit from all of their shared experience. And I don't think you can build those kind of intimate relationships with people where you can trust them to ask them those questions if you're not regularly volunteering and mingling with them. I hope that answered your question.
It totally did. And it actually makes me agree with you 100%. And also, since I'm also a little bit on the hot seat, as you said, I will share that it is not only that ability to learn from others with true intent of help, which I think is very, very specific of ILTAN's. I haven't experienced that in any other organization. But in addition to that, it gives you almost a credential, right? If you just go and say, hey, I'm Mel, I'm here to ask you a couple of questions about your firm. They'll be like, no. But if you come and say, look, I'm a volunteer for ILTA. We're trying to accomplish this. And here's the reason we'd love to speak with you. People are 9 times out of 10 more than willing to do that. And now you mentioned something else about being here and how you can also build those relationships. Well, I would like to bring up, if you haven't, that we have a little clicky thing here.
Yes. Okay. Good idea. Well, in case people
are
here now.
That?
I don't think we've done it yet, have we?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
And
good.
so when you see it click green, right, it shares our contact information. I don't know if you've done it, but it actually shares with 4 and even 6 people. Like you can all click boom and everybody gets connected. Now, what I do with that is you end up with your click database, your contacts. Afterwards, I schedule virtual coffees with people. So I know we've connected. We've only had a few minutes. And so once you have those few minutes, you have an idea, but now you have their contact. So I sort it by interest of where we may be more interested to speak. And then I keep going throughout the year. There's no rush, right?
Yeah.
What do you do to stay in touch with the people that you meet here?
Well, and I'll answer that. But before I do, I wanted to come back to something you said about the credibility that you get, I think, with the
yes.
ILTA brand. So there's a project that we've been working on in the UK, and it's basically to build a defensible AI workflow in the context of disclosure, which is what we call discovery, such that, and it's tool agnostic and it's workflow agnostic, because we want to encourage more people to use the latest technology that's available in order to streamline their process. And none of the law, so there are lots of law firms that I've been working with on this project, but understandably, they didn't want to do it under the law firm banner, because it's important that there's an independence here, because, and that's the other great thing about the ILTA brand, you know, this is not pushing one particular agenda or one particular way of doing things. It's a truly collaborative, collegiate process. And so now, as a result of the litigation special interest group doing it under this ILTA banner, I think there's more credibility to the project, and it's just a great way to help get people involved and to do something, because they're all volunteering their time in order to put this together as well for the benefit of the industry. Because I think there's a philosophy that a rising tide raises all boats, and actually, you know, we can all benefit from the improvement and the adoption of technology, and that is the very ethos of ILTA, right? That is why everybody is here, in order to encourage the legal profession to use technology more efficiently for their benefit and for their clients' benefit. And so, to go back to your question about when I am here and when I do try and connect with people, I totally agree with what you said. I mean, it's sensory overload, this place, isn't it?
It is.
And so, you know, when you speak to everyone, and if you've got 15 coffees that you're having that day, it's almost challenging to try and retain all of that. So I use it as much as an opportunity to meet someone briefly. You know, I'm still quite a big advocate of the face-to-face. And so being able to shake someone's hand, being able to see someone in person, even if it's 5-10 minutes, I think is a really important thing to do. And then exactly that afterwards, you know, like if either, because sometimes it might be that you meet people, and because legal tech is a broad church, they might be in a very different sector and they might not do something that's particularly relevant to you. And in fact, so I had a meeting earlier on with someone who's completely outside of my realm of expertise, but I think I know who would be a good connection for them. And so often when I meet people like that, I think, hey, look, you know, I don't know if you and I are helpful to one another, but I think this person is definitely someone that you should meet, and you try and spark those conversations. And so, yeah, I'll do the same after I've met with everyone. I'll think, okay, well, look, who can I be useful to? Who can be useful to me? Let's arrange a proper virtual call at some point when we've gone past having to catch up on all of our work, having been gone at this conference for a week, and see if we can foster some kind of meaningful relationship there afterwards. And then also, who else can I connect? Out of all the people that I've met, who's going to be useful to each other? Because yeah, I think that's very much the ethos of the ILTA world.
I couldn't agree with you more. It's very much the ILTA brand. I think that as much as you would be willing to help an ILTAN with a question, you want to connect them, right? You want to make sure that they succeed and that they get not just a conference, not just a pin, right? Not just all the wonderful swag, by the way, that we have here, but those really meaningful relationships, because this is a really small industry. People believe that it's huge. It really isn't. And most people outside of law firms will never imagine that the amount of professional staff that is needed in order to have a successful business in this industry is really staggering.
I mean,
so they go around, right? So you're here today, but tomorrow you're in another company, and we can still help each other out.
Absolutely. I mean, you say it's small, but you come to a place like this, and again, this is from a British perspective, right? We have ILTA Europe in London every year in November, and you know, I mean, this is 50 times the size of it, and you know, this colossal hall here with these thousands of different software and service providers. I mean, it's a massive community. But I take your point about the people that actually work within it. You know, many of us who've been doing it for a long period of time. We may move firms or we may move brands, and you still acquire that institutional knowledge. And I'm certainly a believer that actually people that have been at a few different places get to see the world a bit differently. Because if you're just in the same institution for the entire period, it can be quite challenging then to see a different way of doing things. Whereas actually, and again, that's the benefit, you get everyone's expertise by being part of this community in a way that you might not if you're just one person in a firm or at a service or software provider with your small team of colleagues.
Absolutely. And that's also part of what ILTA does really well, which is gives access to your full list of employees, right? And so I think that sometimes, even though that's fantastic, it has been for me a challenge sometimes to let everybody know what this is about, because it's not always relevant or it's not always the moment. And so it's difficult for people to take advantage of what really is a benefit here. And so with that in mind, I would like to ask you, do you have any suggestions, or recommendations for two things? Number one, those first timers, right?
Yeah.
Which I think is huge to what do you bring home with you to wherever that is. But secondly, how do we help evangelize ILTA, whether here or in another country? If your organization has 30 offices or 3 or 2, wherever they live, those people belong to ILTA, they're members. So what are your recommendations, if any?
Well, I'm going to take the second question first, if I may, and then just to warn you, I'm going to come back to you because I know that for ILTA South America, that's an area and a membership that you're trying to grow. So I'm interested to get your thoughts on it as well. But I mean, as I say, when I first started coming to ILTA 15 years or so ago, it was, even though it's the International Legal Technology Association, it was more of a US audience and a US business. I think that the international reach is growing massively. And so I sit on the international programming team, and it's notable that obviously this past year we've had Tony McKenna, who's an international president serving for ILTA. And I think that's done a great deal in order to expand the reach. And on our international committee, of which there are many senior people at law firms who are helping evangelize this, we spend a lot of our time focusing on how do we get more international members? And there are a few things that we do for that. So one is all the law firms who are already members of ILTA in the US often don't communicate to their UK colleagues that actually we are a member of this great organization and you can benefit by attending for local events. So we do a lot of work trying to identify the firms that we know are existing ILTA members and reminding them to tell their people internally that actually there's all this great stuff that's happening in Europe as well, and you can access this content and you can attend these events. So I think that's part of the way that we do it. In terms of the way that I try and grow my specific chapter, so the litigation special interest group, it's just a question of cold outreach a lot of the time. So, I mean, I have a pretty big network already through just having been in this space for a long time that come to our events. And then, whenever I do bring people to our events, I'll always try and meet with them before and afterwards to get feedback. And if they liked it, to find out if there are other people that they know, because, again, going back to the point how people move from organization to organization, often you might have someone who's a head of e-discovery at a law firm who previously worked at a different law firm, comes to one of your events and said, this is great. We should tell my former colleague to come to this as well. And so I think it kind of grows a bit organically that way as well. To come back to the first timer question. I mean, as I say, it's sensory overload here. So so it's a really tough thing to know how to navigate it as a first timer. One of the we talked about the buddy program, which I signed up to this year and which I've done for a few years. I think that's really useful. And this is another thing that I think ILTA does really well. They connect you with people before the conference itself. And so I've got 3 different people that I'm buddying with this year. And we had just a video call last week just to introduce ourselves, say hello, find out what it was that they wanted to do. Each of them had slightly different requirements or desires whilst they were here. So, listening to what it was that they wanted to get out of it. Some of them were more interested in the content, some of them more interested in the networking. I then kind of made some suggestions, and then we also arranged, and this is another great thing that I think ILTA does, on the Sunday night to meet at the opening reception. And that's always such a nice icebreaker, right? Yeah. You get a chance as a first timer because you've got your ribbon on. People see you as a first timer. They come up to you, they say hello, and I feel like I'm gushing a little bit about the ILTA community, but I do think it is one of those places where people will come, and if they recognize that you're new or if you're on your own, they'll say hello and they'll make an effort to introduce themselves. And that's why it's such a warm and nice place. So I guess my advice to a first timer is just, don't be worried. It's like, identify yourself as a first timer, and other people will do the work for you. They will come and say hello. They'll take you by the arm. They'll take you to various different places. Now, anyway, I wanted to go back to my question about building the, effectively asking you the same question back,
Yes.
building the international brand, and particularly in the context of South America. So what's the work that you've been doing in that capacity, and how do you think we continue to grow our international reach?
Sure. Well, there's, I think, a lot of work to be done. And I think it's more on the psychology side, actually, more so than anything else. With Latin America in particular, because my heritage is Colombian, my family lives in Colombia, and I work a lot with Mexico and Colombia specifically. And we are used to loving everybody that's not from our country, right?
Yeah.
And everything that's not from our country. So if we build this beautiful glass, James, I built this beautiful glass. It has magic water, but I'm sure that in the US they have triple magic water.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I'm not going to bring this over there because they got triple magic water, right? And so it is more of a reluctancy of people to join a place where if you ask, would you come speak? Like, I want to hear what you have to say. They'll be like, no, I want to go there and learn from you, right? And so I am trying to turn the sight a little bit from us, our committees, and looking to what we can find for technology specifically in our universes in Latin America. People there build technology that's incredible with very little resources, with very little time, and it's helping them get through. And now I will say, it's not always great, as in the processes, because we have a tendency of putting a Band-Aid on it and it becomes permanent. But all of that to say that I just think that we need to find ways of changing the way we face things and absorbing content from both ends. And so if we're able to understand that they're going through a process too, that they are being affected by AI and everything that we have issues with ourselves, but they are living in a place where they're not in the race for AI, right? They will never have the resources or, the technology and the data centers, everything that's needed in order to be a potency in this race. And so it's been really difficult sometimes, I feel, for those organizations to believe that they are thriving when they are. So what I try to do is meet when I go there with other organizations and understand what is it that they're doing and celebrate that, first of all, because I think it's important that we connect with each other and we network and we commiserate over our issues. But also it's about them understanding that ILTA is what you just described. That we are not going to say, oh, come, we'll teach you. People want to know about you. They want to understand who you are. And I think that whole full circle ends with a lot of the programs that you just discussed. Like, I was part of the mentor program.
Okay.
And that's how I met Barbara Gondim. And she lives in Brazil. Right?
Yeah.
And I just thought that was the most fantastic thing because she's helping me with my Portuguese. Like, all these things happen. And she actually was shocked that she was selected as a mentor, first of all. She's that kind of a superstar. But on top of that, she was wondering, like, who would want to learn from somebody in Brazil? Turns out that is right. Like, people want to learn. So I think that the more we make awareness of the fact that we're all on the same boat, we all have the same challenges, and we all want to help just as much, I think that that's going to bring our community a lot more together. So that's what I try to do.
Yeah.
Spread the word.
That's fantastic. And I would say, I mean, much of what you said resonated. So even in the UK legal tech market, whilst there is quite a lot of funding, and it's increasingly more so, there's a big government initiative in order to try and get more legal tech businesses built because it's a thriving industry. It's still America that leads the way, I think, in terms of the advancement of legal technology. And it's just because of, the resources and the business of American law, and there's, just so much more funding here as well. And that's why I think, actually, as a legal tech practitioner in the UK, abroad in international markets, the other major advantage of ILTA, because it's a US-led organization, even though it's an international one, is often there are trends here that you can witness which will percolate in your own market, in a year or two's time. And I think you really get an opportunity through the US leadership that we have to see some of the most advanced stuff. I mean, certainly, in the Gen AI world, when you want to find the best technology and the most sophisticated tools, I really feel like it's this nation which tends to be the pioneer. I mean, it always prides itself of being a nation of pioneers. but certainly in the legal AI world, that's definitely true. And you know, you just look at some of the organizations that are here and some of the funding that they've been able to raise in very short period of time, and some of the tools that they've been able to implement and build, you know, because of all the resources, and it's incredible. Have you had an opportunity to walk the floor or to see any demos or to see any of the technology? And if so, is there anything that's really stuck out for you as something that's impressive?
So I have walked around a lot, and I have not sat through any demos because I need to get the lay of the land first. And believe it or not, I haven't had a chance to walk around the whole place yet.
Yeah,
to your point of massiveness.
Yeah, it would take you forever.
Yeah, it's just if you actually do that. But I will tell you that the one thing that I have noticed more so than years past is that now people are starting to specialize. Before you saw AI, everybody's AI. Now you see e-discovery with AI, right? Now you see the time entry with AI, the agents with specific workflows for legal using AI. So I think that we have moved up somehow in our level of usage, of also being able to bring it into our workflows and into our enterprises. It's no longer, you know, the X we're not going to move through. I'm not saying some organizations aren't there, but I'm saying you see a difference on what is actually on the floor. And just to bring one point that I forgot to mention is you can get involved in all these programs that happen here right now, and even the buddy program, the mentor program, but you can also be on the board, for example, like Alexa Isaacs. She lived in London, right? You know her, and she's been working with a committee. We've known each other for 2 years, and we've met for the first time here this time. Right. And so those relationships, the reason why I'm bringing this back is because I think that volunteering, not only to do something while here or to do something for somebody while you're here, you can actually do something for the organization year round and be a part of these committees and grow within the organization.
And so also to bring it back, so the reason that you've met Alexa here in person is actually partly through my achievement, because I lobbied for the international scholarship about 3 years ago on our volunteer committee. It was then approved, and Alexa is funded here because of the international scholarship.
You see, so you can build programs too, right? Build programs that change people's life. This is life-changing. I know it may seem crazy, but it really is. I mean, I don't think you would disagree with me on that.
Absolutely. And I mean, I was going to say, so if you haven't had a chance yet, when you do get to walk the floor, if you go to the Startup Hub in particular, and you see some of the companies there, and you know, they are very much in their infancy, but something like this is just such an amazing opportunity, because you know, there will be companies on that section over there, which will end up on that section over there at some stage. You know, it just takes meeting the right people, getting the right connections, and the sky's the limit.
I 100% agree. You know, one other thing that I would like to mention is the fact that, like you said, people will do the work for you, right? They'll smile, they'll show you a place. It's something very interesting that happens when it comes to the vendor side, that you end up getting a lot of emails and you do make a lot of connections. So the last thing I wanted to mention is there are a lot of people that will offer you a lot of things. And if you can't get to them today, you can still connect after the fact through emails. You can still schedule demos. And now you have a little bit of time to process. So hopefully it'll be a better time to do that too.
Absolutely.
Well, I think that's all the time we have today, James. It has been an absolute pleasure.
It was so lovely to speak to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your conference.
You too.